Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Getting Your Start in the Management Consulting Industry podcast, part of the Pitt Business AlumniCast's Industry Insider Series. My name is Max Kneis. I'm currently an associate with the Boston Consulting Group out of our Atlanta office, and I am a graduate of CBA from 2018. Just quick couple highlights about myself. I'm a recent graduate. Live down in Atlanta now, started work here last September. My first couple of projects have been focused on various pricing strategies and a couple of key clients that we have. Originally, I'm from Germany and grew up outside of Philadelphia, which makes me a pretty big Philadelphia Eagles fan. So one of the big questions I had when I first heard about the consulting industry was, what is consulting? What does a consultant really do? If you go online, you'll probably find even more confusion than asking some friends around you. The Google definition is that consultants give advice to other professionals. I suppose that's a decent start, but still pretty vague. So in my opinion, there's four main pieces that define what consulting, and specifically management consulting, is. The first is around problem solving. So gathering information and data, doing analysis, using various frameworks to answer various questions that you have on your project. The second is all about creating value. So how does all that problem solving that you're doing turn into something that the client can implement and ultimately make more money from or meet one of their other goals? The third is leveraging expertise. So as a consultant, you have access to partners with a lot of knowledge, expert teams, potentially proprietary benchmarks and information, or public benchmarks and research databases, and also past work that your firm has done. So how can you kind of leverage all of that, synthesize it, and turn it into something that can help the client? And then finally, it's all about helping clients achieve their goals. So generally, that means showing the client what is needed to do to get where they want to go. And much more eloquently than that definition that I just gave, BCG CEO Rich Lesser defines consulting, or our company, as partnering with our clients and solving the hardest problems, challenging their businesses and the world. So just to give a quick background about the Boston Consulting Group, we're one of the three largest management consulting companies in the world, founded in 1963 up in Boston, and are now across 50 countries and more than 90 offices. We have over 16,000 employees, and I think even more importantly, 22,000 alumni worldwide that hold all sorts of cool positions, both in industry and in the public sector. And then we really focus kind of our work all sits within 20 practice areas divided between industries and functions. So within industries, we have things like healthcare, retail, private equity, telecom and technology, and functions span anything from strategy, transformations, people and organizations, marketing, sales and pricing, et cetera. So when you join a management consulting company right out of undergrad, you'll be fulfilling a role typically known as an associate or a business analyst. There's really a couple of things that you're doing kind of day in and day out, but really you're adding a ton of value and playing a really key and crucial role in your project. The biggest thing probably on your plate is going to be conducting analysis, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So on the quantitative side, you'll be combing through a ton of different data that the client and different public sources have, leveraging Excel and other big data sources. And there's also the qualitative side, where you'll be interviewing clients and experts, doing a lot of various research, connecting with folks in the field to really get all the information together to help you drive to answer to the different hypotheses that you're forming on the client's problem. And that kind of brings me to the second point, which is all about driving the insight. So you're doing all this cool analyses and you're getting these little nuggets of information. So how do you synthesize that into something that will answer the client's question? The third big piece is content creation, which mainly comes in the form of slides or PowerPoint decks, but could also be anything from a brochure or a booklet, or just kind of quick meeting preps for a more verbal or visual meeting. And really iterating a lot on that with your manager and the partner team to make sure the content you're creating fits into the overall story and messaging that we're presenting to the client. And then the last piece is client interaction, which you'll get a chance to do on day one. You might not be presenting to the CEO in the key steerco meeting, but you'll definitely have the chance to work with some more junior clients on data requests, interviewing more senior clients, being in the room and really getting a feel for how to kind of top leaders of top companies interact with each other and think about these very complex problems, which is honestly a really fun and a great learning experience. So what I think you're probably all most interested in knowing is, how do you get a job with one of these companies, be that an internship or a full-time offer? So I really break kind of the recruiting process down into 3 stages. The first kind of pre-interview, the second is the interview, and you can think of the third as a post-interview, or hopefully offer or offers that you have to choose between. Getting the interview, part 1, I think can be the biggest hurdle you have to overcome, especially from a school that is not traditionally a target for the top consulting companies. But CDA has placed people into every single consulting company, or into a majority of the consulting companies around the world, around the country. And with the right kind of mindset, you can too. I think the most important part to focus on is networking and making some connections with people at various firms. So when you simply submit online, a resume submission is pretty hard to just get noticed. So it's really important to make that concerted effort to network and build relationships. What I would suggest is to leverage commonalities that you have just to find and connect with people, either you find through LinkedIn or the Pitt Business Mentoring Match. That can be a fraternity or another organization that you're in that you can search by. That could be going to a similar school, hometown, sports team. Really, I think it's better just to find people that you have something in common with to email versus just cold reaching out to anyone you can find within a certain company. Like I said, I would suggest leveraging LinkedIn and searching for specific companies you're interested in, and sort of those type of keywords that you align with, to try to find some folks that might get back to you. And I also want to just note that recruiting for most of the firms is usually done on the office level. So that means when you apply, you select the offices that you're most interested in. That office will review your application. So it's really great to build connections with a couple of offices you're most interested in and kind of build several connections there, versus them building connections with 10 people spread out across 10 offices. And the final point I want to make is use anyone that you're able to talk to as a bridge for more connections or as an introduction to somebody else you can speak with. And then make sure you're keeping in touch and checking in every few months with the people you've connected with, so that you can leverage them when it comes time for your application. The application is going to be the next piece. So application timelines will usually open up around August for full-time hiring for the next year, both for internships and full-time. And over the last couple of years, as you're probably aware, the interview timelines for a lot of these firms have pulled up. So most applications are actually going to be due early to mid-September. So if you're interested in consulting for the 2020 summer or the 2020 full-time cycle, make sure you're actively aware of these deadlines going into this coming summer. Usually that application consists of an online form, a resume, and sometimes a cover letter. The firms do have a pretty high standard for GPA, and a 3.5 through 3.7 is going to be an unofficial cutoff at most places, so just keep that in mind. And a lot of firms will actually ask for test scores like SAT and ACT, especially for your math section, to get a sense of your quantitative ability. You want to make sure to highlight different leadership positions and experience that you have on your resume and in your cover letter. And it's not just the positions, but really what you did to make an impact. So really trying to highlight either quantitatively what you did in that position and what results you drove, or qualitatively why what you did was different and hopefully better than somebody else that might have held the position. And then the third thing you want to try to highlight is any sort of prior internship or consulting experience that you have. So any sort of work you maybe did for large companies, any sort of cool roles that you've held, some things that you've done at undergrad that you might be able to highlight, such as if you took Andy Hanna's consulting field project class or the MBA consulting field project, or any other type of advisory or consulting work you've done. It doesn't have to be your traditional view of consulting. And you can spin to show you've done some of this work before and you have an interest in it. It's great. Next, the second part, once you've kind of been granted an interview, or really in parallel as you're waiting to hear back, you want to make sure you're doing plenty of interview prep. So as you're probably aware, consulting interviews consist of a case process. So you'll be working with your interviewer to analyze a case study and develop solutions to the client challenges it poses. Typically, also these cases are based on real projects the company has done, and there's usually no right or wrong answers. Instead, a case is really looking to evaluate your thinking process, your strategic skills, and your ability to make a strong case for recommendations. It's really important, I think, to take a few months to practice, especially the structure and framework on how you do these cases and some best practices on how to approach the problems. There's a ton of resources out there, and I would really recommend checking out a book or a website such as Case in Point or Victor Chen's Case Interview Secrets to get started, and then finding a friend or a small study group to give each other practice cases on a weekly basis to get a feel for it. And I'm happy anyone that reached out to me to kind of pass on some of that information as well. Just for your interviews, there's typically going to be 2 rounds where the first one actually has a bigger focus on the case, and often the second round will be with more senior folks and be kind of half case, half fit and behavioral. And the behavioral portion really does matter. And then finally, the third stage, the victory stage, is when you get an offer or multiple offers and get to make that decision where you want to commit for the upcoming summer or your first job. Just as we close, I wanted to put a quick plug in for the Pitt Business Mentoring Match. This is a great tool for that pre-interview stage of finding some connections. So make sure you really take full advantage of that. Feel free to reach out to me or other alumni, and I'm also happy to put you in touch with some other alumni at various consulting firms that I know. So thanks so much for listening today. I hope you got some meaningful information out of this.